The views and opinions of the guests on the WYLEANER show are those of the guests and are not necessarily the views and opinions of the hostess WYLEANER and or her co-host.
She's always dealing with reality. With love she imparts her songs of the heart. She knows that who you love will make you grow. Come on and find out what you need to know. Running is the golden mode. Where the rubber meets the road. Come on, baby. The WYLEANER Show.
Black History Month. Hey everybody, yes indeed, it is Black History Month and we are celebrating Black History Month right here on the WYLEANER Show, and I'm excited to be back with you again today. Yes indeed, we want to welcome you all back. We are just ecstatic about the information that we're going to be sharing with y'all. Yes. And I'm welcoming back my co-host, Miss Amy. How you doing, Miss Amy?
I'm good. How are you?
Absolutely marvelous, lady. Absolutely marvelous. And look, y'all know who I am. I'm WYLEANER, the Las Vegas Queen of Gospel.
And I'm Amy Rucker, her co-host, the voice of my generation.
All righty then. And you know what? We want to welcome everybody back who is watching out there on WYLEANERTVShow.com, everybody who is watching on YouTube and Google Hangout and Tumblr, and all of our Facebook fans, and everybody who is tuning in all over the world, everybody who's watching out there in Pakistan or wherever you're tuning in from. We are excited that you came back to be with us today, and we have a guest that's going to be sharing with you. Today we are going to be talking about Black history, okay, and next week and the following week. And so we're going to be, just delving into the knowledge, just try to see what kind of knowledge we can come up with here, because I know it's some information out there somewhere, and we gonna pull it in, okay? And so you know what we always tell you, to strap up your boots, because it's gonna be on. The rubber's gonna meet the road right here on the WYLEANER Show. And so what we gonna do, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, you know what's gonna happen, Miss Amy? The rubber is gonna meet the road. We'll see you in just a minute.
Hi, this is WYLEANER, the Las Vegas Queen of Gospel. First of all, I really do appreciate your listening and viewing my show every week. I would greatly appreciate your financial assistance as well to keep my show on the air. Please just make some type of contribution. $5, $10, $20, $50, $100 or more, whatever you desire. Please log on to www.WYLEANERTVShow.com and click the pay button, or please send your check or money order to WYLEANER, that's spelled WYLEANER, to 420 North Nellis Boulevard, Suite A3, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89110. Also, if you would like to be a guest on the show, please call 702-242-2100 or email me at WYLEANERTVShow@AOL.com. That's all for now. And thanks again for your continued support. Blessings to you too. And this is where the rubber meets the road.
Okay, everybody, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. All right, and Miss Amy has some information that she's going to share with y'all, and then we're going to push forward.
Yes, the phone lines will be open at about 5:15, and that number that you want to dial will be 1-866-945-1110. Remember to press option 1. Also, you can reach us at 702-527-4471. And remember, when you call, be respectful to the guests and us, or you will get we can agree to disagree, but we're going to ask you that you be polite on these phones. So you just ready to just have fun tonight?
Yes.
Also got some other information. When you do call in, please state your name and where you're calling from, the city and state. Also, be sure to turn down your external radios or headset quiet enough where you can still hear your answer. And also, today we encourage everybody to call in whatever type of Black history that they might have, and viewers, because we want to know. We want to hear what you guys have to say about Black history.
All righty, then. Thank you, Miss Amy, for sharing that with everybody. And so we have with us a guest today, and he's actually a return guest. Okay, and this gentleman, he is a powerhouse of knowledge. Would you agree?
Yes.
A powerhouse of knowledge, and we chose him as one of the guests that's going to be with us. In actuality, for the next 3 shows, today's show, and then next week's show, and then the last week of February, of the month of February, we're going to be covering Black history. Okay, and so what's going to happen here is we're going another guest on next week, and I'm not sure, it's a lady, and I'm not sure she's going to be with us for 2 weeks or what, but Brother Wade is going to be with us all 3 of this show and the next 2 shows, okay, for the rest of this month. And so what we're going to do is we're going to share information with you all that we have acquired in relation to Black history, African American history, under the auspices of religion. Okay, this is strictly under religion. Okay, we're not gonna tell you who invented the stoplight and who invented the umbrella and things like that. You know, that's information that pretty much everybody hears and sees and finds out all over the place anyway. So we're gonna go. We're gonna make the rubber meet the road.
We got some good stuff for y'all today.
We're gonna do what the WYLEANER show do.
Yeah.
And that's make the rubber meet the road over here.
We're gonna challenge your feet.
Yeah.
Out that comfort zone.
Hello.
Above.
For sure. We're gonna make them think and you know, bust a move here. So this is what we're gonna do. We're going to do some presentations. I have some information I'm going to share with you. Miss Amy has some information that she's going to share with you. And some of this information is probably just going to simply blow your hair back, you know, and some of it may not even phase you. You just never know. But I know Miss Amy got a good one. And I was like, whoa, where you get that? I can't wait to hear more about what she's got to share with y'all. That's why I got a young person here with me, y'all. Because these young folks, you know, they be thinking outside the box sometimes. And that's what I love about the WYLEANER show. We get outside the box, you know. So for the most part, we're going to do that. And then we're going to have Brother Wade with his presentation. And he's going to present whatever it is that he wants to present. We're going to give him about 15 minutes to do his presentation, and he's bringing something to the table, some type of religious Black history type knowledge for us, okay? And then, of course, once he's done, we're going to do a little question and answer, because, you know, we're going to listen to him, but we might have a few questions after he's done, because I don't know how well it's going to sit with me what he has to share. So,
you know, Brother Wade face some stuff.
Yeah, he make us have to challenge him a little bit, you know what I mean? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to challenge Brother Wade when it's all said and done, okay? And as for you out there, like Miss Amy already told you, you know, if you have some Black history knowledge or information that you want to share with our viewers and our listeners, you can feel free to call in and share that knowledge, and we'll welcome you aboard to share what you want to share as well.
We might challenge you too, because we just don't accept anything from the WYLEANER show. We got to make sure we're going to do our research when you give us some information.
Ooh, I don't know about this girl right here. I'll tell you what, I think I picked a good one. What y'all think? Yeah, she's a good one. And a cutie pie at that, so that really makes it work, you know. All right, so anyway, we are going to welcome to the show Brother Renaldo Wade, and he's gonna just kind of say hello to us for a quick minute here. Brother Renaldo Wade, are you with us?
I am with you. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to say shalom to the both of you, and you are queens, and that is as well to all of the women that are tuning in on this evening. I'm just excited to be here. I'm honored. I'm humbled to be sharing history, Black History Month. I don't like to use the word black, but that was a term that was tagged on us. However, we have some rich history and culture to discuss for the next 3 weeks. So I'm just proud to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Well, Brother Wade, it is our total pleasure. Okay, it is our total pleasure to have you to share with us for the next 3 weeks, and so we're looking forward to what you're going to bring to the table. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, Miss Amy, my co-host, she got a little something she gonna share with y'all.
Yes, and this is actually going to be good. So can I talk to y'all for a minute?
Go talk to him for
By the way, is that okay? Can I talk to you and our viewers?
I will sit back.
Because I want to pose a question to not only the viewers, but to the both of you. It's just a quick question.
Don't be asking me no question.
Yeah, I gotta ask you a question because I know if you done been to Baptist, and these are some of the cultures that use what I'm about to talk about. The AME, which is the African Methodist, Episcopal, something like that.
Yes.
So I was doing some research, and I noticed that sometime when you're in church, you see the people when they get up and they're excusing themselves, they raise the one hand. And so I always question, what exactly was that about? And because you see people do it so often, you don't even know if they truly understand the meaning. So as I begin to study, when it came to church and it came to the slaves wasn't necessarily able to go to church because the masters even had them work on Sundays. And then as I began to study, it was saying how that oftentimes the slave owners, they believed that slavery and church and their religions with God was totally separate. So they didn't see anything wrong. And they didn't want the slaves to be empowered by the message of Jesus Christ is what I was getting from the information that I was receiving. Ain't that some juicy stuff? They didn't want to they didn't want the slaves to feel like Jesus' message was them to feel equal, like they had equal rights and that we should love our neighbors as ourselves. They didn't want them to get that message. But there was a time that in my study that they did allow sometimes they did allow some of the slaves to go to church. And when they would go to church, they would allow them to sit in the balcony area while the master got his worship. They segregated them. So they would be over here, and then they would keep them from the white individuals. No offense to anyone. However, and so when it came to it, when it was time for them to use the bathroom or to do anything, they still needed permission. So my question to everybody today is, what is this finger thing about? And do you do it? And if so, why do you do it? Do you know why you do it? Or you just do it because everybody else doing it and you think it look cute? And
well, you want me?
I'm gonna get to where we going first, then you can answer. But because I want you to just understand, do you believe what the message is saying? So with the research that I said, it said during the slavery days, the masters took their slaves to, like I said, to the service with them. And in order for them to go to the bathroom or the restroom, they had to identify themselves or get the master's attention. So they would raise their finger up as letting them know, I don't want to disturb the service and I need permission to go to the bathroom. So I just want to know, what do y'all think about that? Is that rubber meet the road material? Do you still hold your finger up going out to the bathroom when the preacher is up there preaching and ministering? So I just want to talk to you and Brother Wade and our viewers. Call in, please.
I know you're not gonna throw me under the bus with that.
Oh, I'm gonna talk to you. We're gonna talk today. We talking about real history.
Like I'm gonna put it like this, okay? This is where I'm going with this.
Okay,
now, you know I'm WYLEANER. I'm gonna say this. I've seen it done.
Okay. I've seen it done too.
I've seen it done. In many churches, I see people when they walk in there, they get up to go to the bathroom or go lead the worship service, whatever. They raise that finger up and they kind of put the head down a little bit and they walk in. And well, I mean, now you can educate me, Miss Amy, on this because I just assumed that it meant excuse me.
See, and that's the thing. A lot of the time we fall into rituals and routines, and we don't even know what they truly mean. So we're gonna educate you on the WYLEANER show today, where the rubber gonna meet the road. If you still holding your finger up, we have been freed. That we don't need to hold our finger up no more. Just politely say, "Excuse me," and go to the restroom. Okay. Brother Wade, we want to know what you think. Do you think the information that we're providing today is accurate?
Oh, the rubber meets the road on the WYLEANER show.
I guess y'all know what's
up. Hold your fingers up out there. Get it right. Know why you do what you do. Let's see what Brother Wade got to say about the finger.
The finger.
Oh, boy.
You know what? I'm thanking the Father so much for what we're about to discuss. Is pertaining to the ignorance that we have as a people, because we really do not know why we do things. The more that you do things, the more that you start to believe. Like, for instance, if someone was to tell me that the sky is green, and you would tell me, and I know it's blue, and you continuously to tell me, day after day, I'm going to start to believe that it's green because you are constantly telling me. So with this finger that's put in the air, Sister Amy is absolutely correct. It was brought out of slavery. We're not in physical slavery, but we are still in mental and psychological slavery. Because if that was the case, if we was free from the spiritual and psychological slavery, we would not do these things. It also takes me to the point, I'm glad that she said that as well, about what happened during December 31st with the night watch. Why do they do that? Because they was waiting for the Emancipation Proclamation to come into effect on January the 1st of 1863. So look at here. We look at over 200 years later, or close to it, and we still do night watch services. What are we waiting for on New Year's Eve? Are we waiting for Jesus to come on this day, or are we waiting just for the new year? All of these things are combined. So I'm glad that Sister Amy brought that up. The finger was because, excuse me, Master, can I go to the bathroom? And as a matter of fact, Master used to sit in the midst of the slaves to make sure that the preacher was bringing forth a message that he wanted them to get. There was a lot of things that was left out of the word that was taught to the slaves, and the Bible was used for mind control, to control the slaves. And it's even happening today. Christianity today is still controlling the mindsets of people and having them in bondage. Hey, it's the American way.
Whew, it's going down today.
I'm sorry, it ain't supposed to be no dead air. But those of you who are watching out there, you can see me sitting here with my mouth wide open, so therefore you know it ain't no dead air. I'm just flabbergasted right about now. I tell you the truth. I don't know if I'm gonna share anything. Y'all got me snowing.
I love that night watch one. That is, I never even knew that they were waiting for the Emancipation Proclamation. Whoa, and it was I did not know. Yeah,
that's rubber meet the road.
Yes, it is. Man, I am definitely going to research and study that one as well.
Yeah. Wow.
We pack up them congregations and they are ready for that December 31st service, waiting to wow.
Okay. You know what? I'm twisted right now. I'm trying to gather myself together here. I can't share with y'all like that. I'm just y'all got me shamed.
Because this is stuff that really needs to be talked about.
Yeah,
because we see this stuff and we're doing this stuff, and it's like, why are we constantly doing stuff? Where do we pick it up?
Yeah, where do we get it from? So it's very, very Boy, I should have brought a fan in here.
Hot in here.
Anyway, it's getting hot in here. Okay, so for those of you who out there watching and paying attention, you see what we just shared with you. That's some deep information right there. Go study it. Go check that out. Okay, y'all know how we do on the WYLEANER show. Go study for yourself and figure it all out. Okay, so listen, I'm just gonna share some some information with y'all about the first Black churches, and then of course I'm gonna turn it back to Brother Wade and see if he concur with the information that I acquired. Okay, the first Black churches were established in the Revolutionary War period in South Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia. Some authorities believe the first Black church was a Baptist church established between 1773 and 1775 at Silver Bluff, South Carolina, across the Savannah River from Augusta, Georgia. Okay, the first Black church in the North was the African Church of St. Thomas, which was dedicated in Philadelphia in July the 17th, 1794. On August the 12th, 1794, the St. Thomas parishioners affiliated with the Episcopal Church, Richard Allen and his followers organized Philadelphia's Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in July of 1794. The first Black minister certified by a predominantly white denomination was Lemuel Haynes, okay, who was licensed to preach in the Congregational Church in 1780. Haynes was also the first Black pastor of a white church in Torrington, Connecticut. In 1818, he was called to a white church in Manchester, New Hampshire. And the first Black bishop was Richard Allen, once again, who was elected at a general convention of the African Methodist Episcopal Church in Philadelphia on April the 10th, 1816. James Varick was named bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church on July the 30th, 1822. And so that takes me to my main information that I wanted to share with y'all. I had to kind of go there in order to take you here. And where I'm taking you is the first African-American woman minister. And her name was Mrs. Jarena Lee. Jarena Lee was the first Black woman preacher in the AME Church. She was born in Cape May, well, maybe Goshen, Cape May, and returns to South Jersey many times in her preaching travels. The woman was absolutely amazing. To say she traveled extensively does not do justice to the extent of her travels. She began preaching in 1820 and preached throughout Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. She traveled to Ohio at least 2 times to preach in Cincinnati, Dayton, Urbana, Chillicothe. She made an extensive trip to preach her way through Canada. She says she even preached in Maryland and Virginia. She was born to a free Black family in 1783. Yet she was inspired by her faith to preach and speak the word of God, not just in her home church, but to venture out even to slave states to spread the word of God. In 1811, she married Mr. Joseph Lee, pastor of Society at Snow Hill, about 6 miles from the city of Philadelphia. She seems to have had a difficult time in adjusting, but persevered. She was there for 6 years when her husband died, and she was left a widow with 2 small children, one 6 months old and one 2 years old. She approached Reverend Richard Allen again about preaching. He had become the bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. He could not give her permission to preach. but did approve her extorting. Extorting seems to be responding and speaking in response to the Spirit moving you during a service. Several years later, during a service being led by Reverend Richard Williams at the Bethel Church, the text he took in Jonah 2, chapter 9, verse salvation is of the Lord. But as he proceeded to explain, he seemed to have lost the Spirit, when in the same as by altogether supernatural impulse to my feet, when I was aided from above to give an exhortation on the very text which my brother William had taken. I told them I was like Jonah, for it had been then nearly 8 years since the Lord had called me to preach his gospel to the fallen sons and daughters of Adam's race, but that I had lingered like him and delayed to go at the bidding of the Lord and warn those who are as deeply guilty as were the people of Nineveh. I feared it might be called I should be expelled from the church. But instead of this, the bishop, Reverend Richard Allen, rose up in the assembly and related that I had called upon him 8 years before, asking to be permitted to preach, and that he had put me off, but that he now as much believed that I was called to work, and as any of the preachers present. In 1819, she finally received the blessing of Bishop Allen and began to officially preach for the African Methodist. And that is the information that I wanted to share with you for now. And I'd like to get some elaborations from Miss Amy too, and Brother Wade. Okay, let's start with Brother Wade, and Miss Amy, you kick in after that. Okay, Brother Wade, what do you say?
I feel that the information that you have brought forth is very accurate as far as the first particular churches that were brought in, as far as the South, and then up in the North, up in Philadelphia. By Pastor Allen. What we need to realize and recognize is that a lot of the particular churches were started in regards to, once again, trying to keep the, quote, the African American from advancing spiritually. It was always told by a particular individual that if we can control them spiritually, then we can control them physically, mentally, and psychologically. And so with this coming into play, our spirituality, I feel that, they have allowed us to go into, I like to call it not so much brainwashing, but being whitewashed because our culture was lost in the churches and Christianity over time. But we're starting to see that the church is bringing the culture back as far as where we came from, knowing who we are and whose we are. And so I'm very excited about that. And, like I said, some history that you brought up, it brought back some memories as to what I studied in Black history class in high school, as far as knowing where did the churches originate from. So, once again, we just excited that, we're coming back to the knowledge of the truth. And like I said, WYLEANER, you hit it on the dot with the information that you have provided, as far as especially the woman preacher. It's a lot of sexism when it comes to women preachers. We're getting a lot of that today. But however, we're seeing some of the most powerful preachers that brings forth the truth. They're becoming women.
Well, that's very interesting that you would say that,
Sure
Brother Wade.
is.
I was waiting to see
I was waiting for that too.
I was waiting because I was going to ask you what you had to say about the women preacher, and of course, I noticed that in this day and age, even now as we speak. I mean, I'm nobody's preacher, okay, and I'm not trying to advocate for women preachers at all. That's not where I'm at. WYLEANER show don't do that, but I'm simply saying from experiences and information and places that I've gone and people that I've seen and things that I've heard, there's still even today a controversy where women preachers are concerned, be them African American or any race for that matter. It's just female, period, if you ask me. And but it looks like Miss Jarena Lee was the beginning of it all back in the 1800s. And so why is everybody tripping right now? This started a long time ago.
I know why.
I mean,
they didn't have no clue. They don't know who Jarena Lee is. This is probably the first time they heard Jarena Lee. We glad we can educate y'all on the WYLEANER show because I'm sure some of y'all like, oh, I didn't even know that. And I'm glad you guys brought that point up because that's what I was getting ready to say. I was going to meet the road with that because there is so much controversy when it comes to women preachers. Now what y'all see what they out there saying about. You see, and this is one of the first African American churches with a woman preacher.
Yep. Yeah, and it is true, and Brother Wade has concurred on that as well. Saying that he's actually apparently Brother Wade has researched it himself, and he sees that it is accurate information. So you guys document that out there, listeners, what viewers who's out there watching, document Mrs. Jarena Lee was the very first African American woman preacher.
Yeah.
So all of those of y'all out there.
Stuff.
No, you don't.
You don't hear about
all of those of y'all out there who's tripping and potato chipping about women preachers. And I'm just saying from what I did my research here, they've been around for a long time already. So whatever you're trying to stop from happening right now, I think you probably should have stopped it back in 1820. Okay, so brother, that's just what I have to say on the WYLEANER show, and I can say what I want on my show too. So there. Anyway, Brother Wade, I would like to give you the opportunity, Brother Wade, to do your presentation, present to us what you are bringing to the table today. I cannot wait, and we will hopefully be able to ask you some questions after you're done. So, Brother Wade, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, and good evening to those that are watching in the United States and also all over the world here on the WYLEANER show. We are speaking about Black History Month and how it ties into religion. Wow, this is very deep because I feel it's totally unfair for us to have 1 month out of the year in which it is the shortest month of the year by the Gregorian calendar for us to have, quote, 28 days to just celebrate people of color. And I really feel that we should celebrate every day. When you read your Bible, every particular person that you're going to read in there is a person of color. When you read about, let's go all the way back to Adam and Eve, they were of color. When you read about Enoch, if you read in the book of Genesis, chapter number 5, you will read that he was from Ethiopia. So he was black. When you go through Noah and Noah's 3 sons, and Ham means black. Okay. Ham, when he did what he did toward his father, he went out into a land that is called Mizraim, which is also known as Egypt. In fact, one of his sons' name was Mizraim. Okay. And he had a son by the name of Cush. Cush had a son named Nimrod, and Nimrod was right there on the land of Shinar, in which he tried to build a tower to disrespect the true and living Elohim, and therefore that particular area, which is known as Babylon today, it is somewhere around, and they call it the Middle East, which is around between Iraq and Iran. Okay, when you also look at Abraham, let's look at Abraham. Abraham was a man of color. Okay, when you look at you know, where all of this took place at, all of this took place in Africa. Okay, is what they call it today. But what I really want to show you is some things that are in scripture in which we can see, quote, if people want to call it the blackness that is within his word. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, it says, and what? And the Father shall bring you into Egypt again with ships. Where do you think you at now when you talk about the United States? This is Egypt. This is the house of bondage and constriction. You might be free as to what you want to eat and what you want to drink and who you want to worship, but you're not free because you're still bonded with a birth certificate, social security card, and even if you notice on Facebook now, they even ask you, is this your real name? So you cannot just fall off the grid, okay? So you're not free. You might be free physically, but you're not free mentally, psychologically. Look at what happens in the verse. It says, by the way whereof I spoken to you, you shall see it no more again, and you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondsmen and bondswomen, and no man shall buy you. What is the Father talking about? We never read in history again in which the Israelites were brought back into Egypt again by ships. But we did. The Atlantic slave trade is where it took place. And guess what? The first ship that brought us over, and I say us, of color that brought us over here was a ship that is known as the ship, or they call it the good ship Jesus. How about that? Okay, so here it is. You get these particular ships making money. They made money off of us, off of slavery. It was Sir John Hawkins who had the dubious distinction of being called the first slave ship captain to bring, quote, Africans and Hebrew Israelites over to the Americans. He was a very religious gentleman, and he served, quote, the false god daily, and he taught, hey, we need to love each other. But why wasn't there loving the slaves? They were tricked. They were bamboozled into having the feeling that they was going to go into new land, make some money, and they could bring their families over. Instead, they were on ships for days. Many died. Many tried to escape and swim over. There was a ship that got hijacked, and they steered that particular ship over to Haiti. And that's why there are particular people of color over there in Haiti. But this is my point when it comes to religion. Also, if people can just look at the book of the Song of Solomon, chapter number 1, it says, I am black, but comely, O you daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. That it says, do not look upon me because I am black, because the sun has looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keepers of the vineyards. But my own vineyard I have not kept. So you can even see right there in the Song of Solomon that there were queens that belonged to Solomon that were black. In the renewed covenant, doesn't it say in the book of Revelation that the Messiah, his hair was like wool and his particular feet was like brass? In the book of Acts, it tells us that Paul, they thought that he was an Egyptian. Okay, so what color was Paul? Okay, so we have to look at all of these things and look at how they whitewashed and gave us this book called the King James Version and switched it around. But yet and still, it cannot hide the fact that this is a book of color. This is a book of history, our history. And we should look into it more deeply. I'm not trying to bring racism into the picture because we all belong to the Father. That's true enough. But racism, it is created and is designed to keep us apart. Why? So that we won't know our own identity, so that we won't know our creator. This is my presentation, and I hope that everybody was indeed blessed or they was baruch by it. We need to look at what happened with, they call it what? Remember, we went over holidays, and we was talking about this holiday that was known as, I believe the African holiday is, what is it? It's not Hanukkah, but it's known by Kwanzaa, okay? Didn't nobody know that it was started by a particular man, a black man, who was racist, okay? And he wanted to start a war with the Black Panthers. Look, the Black Panthers, they did not come together and they did not want to lynch anybody that was of the opposite color. What did they do? They was in Oakland, California, feeding people, creating things for the children, bringing more education. And I feel that a lot of people do not want us to be educated. Who are these people? They're the ones that's trying to keep us divided. So we need to look into our history, and we really need to do some research, like what Miss WYLEANER has done, what Miss Rucker has done. We need to do some research, and that way we will know for ourselves who we are and whose we are. That is my presentation thus far.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Brother Renaldo Wade. We really appreciate that, and you've really, yeah, you put something out there. Okay. And you know what? When you brought up about the I did some research on Kwanzaa as well, and I think Miss Amy has too. We both done some research on Kwanzaa, and I mean, it wasn't necessarily my intention to bring out Kwanzaa on the show today, but since you brought it up, I mean, the research that we found on Kwanzaa, and if anybody wants to correct us on this, feel free to do so. You know, you can bust a move. It doesn't matter to me. You can call in and say whatever you need to say, because the phone lines are open if you choose to call in. But what I found out about Kwanzaa was that the guy that started Kwanzaa, yes, Brother Wade, you are correct. He was a racist, and he was also a rapist. He had also been in prison for raping numerous females. Numerous females, not just one woman, but several women. Now, anybody that want to correct me on that can do so, okay? Because believe me, if you want to bring it out there and you say, well, Miss WYLEANER, you're wrong about that one. I have better information than you do. I beg to differ. More power to you. That's what this show is all about. If you studied and you found out something that's contrary to what I just told you, then bring it on, okay? Because that's what I came up with, that the man was a rapist. And even as we speak, they have allowed him to be some type of a professor in California in a university over students as if. And he's got all these books that he's written, and everybody's flocking to read his books and all this kind of. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong now, y'all. I'm not saying that a person can't change, a person can't, you know, regroup and you know, reorganize their lives and turn their life around and begin to do good things. But this Kwanzaa celebration that he came up with himself is nothing to do with nothing. I mean, this is the WYLEANER show, okay? This is where the rubber meets the road over here. So if you can't handle it, shame on you. Flip the script. Okay, but that's the bottom line. Now, if you don't believe me, y'all, do your research on Kwanzaa, okay? Go out there and find it out. That's what I tell you all the time. Study for yourself. Miss Amy, what you say?
No, it just goes back to what we said, that people just follow anything that's hot, anything that's out, anything that's current. They just hop aboard because he threw a few positive words in there. They felt like it was something positive. Oh, unity and all this kind of stuff, but that doesn't do your research on some of this stuff.
Yeah, and
See
it's
who you're following.
What is these each week you supposed to each
Yeah,
day
have like different words and
whatever. It never really made much sense to me anyway, and so I've never celebrated it, but I did research it just to get the gist of it and find out what it was really all about. And I came up with something horrible.
We giving
so
you the
I'm sorry,
truth.
y'all.
It's up to you to accept it.
Not my fault, not Miss Amy's fault, not Brother Wade's fault. We just saying. This is where the rubber meets the road right here. Brother Wade, are you with us on this?
You know what? I'm with you 100%, 1000%. He was also an FBI informant who was trying to, set up the Black Panther Party, And speaking of the Black Panther Party, this is their 50th year anniversary. And, they was trying to do things to educate and to reunite the individuals. And now you have a FBI informant who he was jealous of the Black Panther Party, and he did not want Huey Newton to teach the people. And so he had his own personal agenda. That's where Kwanzaa came from. It came from a personal agenda of one man torturing and raping women, and also just trying to stop the unity of people of color and of all people, as a matter of fact. And so you even got that, look what happened with Martin Luther King Jr., look what happened with Malcolm X. There was somebody who was infiltrating, someone who was in the camp that was there to take out these great leaders. It's such a shame that even today, we don't have the leaders like they did back in the 60s. We look at Al Sharpton, how he sells out, and we look at Jesse Jackson. Where did he disappear to? You know what I mean? So, they are funded by corporate America. So they're only going to speak what they want them to speak. And they try to sugarcoat us, and they try to keep us from coming into the knowledge of the truth. And like I said, the infiltration part of it, of these great leaders. When you look at Malcolm X, who woke up when he came back from Mecca, finding out the true source and coming back and saying, all races, we need to come together. And the Nation of Islam, they wasn't having it. Same thing with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King said, look, I think I've just introduced us to a burning house. And so, and then he dies days later in Memphis. You know what I mean? So, we have to be very careful, as to who we're following nowadays. Religiously, we're just jacked up and we're just trying to find our way. And we need to know who we are and whose we are. Very good point.
We jacked up. Oh, Brother Wade, you don't have to be so cold with it, but I guess you can on the WYLEANER show. You know where you're at. He said we just jacked up religiously.
Yeah, he's definitely.
Oh, boy.
Better know who you're following. Even everybody that's preaching behind the pulpit.
I know.
Ain't necessarily called to preach.
I know.
But what are they preaching, should we say?
What are they
Anybody
telling
can preach.
you?
That don't mean it's the truth.
Yes. What are they telling you out there? Are you following y'all know what I say at the end of every show. Those are my words right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what, Brother Wade, I tell you, man, Miss Amy, you got some questions for Brother Wade?
I did have one question that I noticed you did say in there. You said they called the good ship Jesus when they came across. Did I hear you say something about it being called, the good ship being called Jesus? What was that about?
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you said that, because the name of the ship originally was called Jesus of Lubeck. It was a 700-ton ship. It was purchased by, I believe, King Henry VIII, and it was bought in Germany, and they purchased it. They needed some repair, and they gave it to Sir John Hawkins. It was given unto him by Queen Elizabeth. Okay, Hawkins was a cousin of, I believe, Sir Francis Drake, and he had been granted permission to bring people of color over to the Americans in 1562. So this was done in the name of God, and you know, and so they loaded up some slaves. I believe it was 300 to 500 slaves that they packed in there, and they brought them off of the coast of Africa. It was around Sierra Leone, and so they went on ahead and they shipped them off. It took them some days. They brought back ivory and sugar, and this began the British slave trade. And so therefore, like I said, they named it Jesus of Lubeck, but they nicknamed it the Good Ship Jesus. And I don't see nothing good about slavery at all, you know, capturing people and tricking them and lying to them to let them know that they was going to have a better life. And once they get over to the, you know, over here, they were forced to labor without any pay. That's how they got them into slavery. They tricked them. Even some. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. I want to ask you a quick question here, Brother Wade, in relation to the slaves or people being brought over. Now, I know, you know, our conversation, it's supposed to be all about religion, but then on the flip side of the coin, this history is so deep, it kind of takes us outside and bring us back, you know, so we have to circle around a little bit, y'all, because there's a lot going on there. So my question to you, Brother Wade, is I once heard someone say that Black people, or, you know, African people, or whatever you want to call them, people of color, were slaves before they came here, and they were already slaves by other people of color. In other words, they were already owned as slaves by people of color before they were brought over here and then became slaves of the Europeans. So have you heard of that in your research and in your studies? Have you ever heard that? And if so, can you elaborate on that for me, please?
You know what? I'm glad that you said that, because now you're bringing it back into scripture. When you look at the book of Exodus, it is there that the Israelites, they were there in Egypt for 430 years. You see, so that is when I read the first terminology of slavery. Before then, in the book of Genesis, chapter number 10 and 11, like I said, you read about Nimrod having slaves to build this tower in this city that is later called Babel or Babylon. Okay, so the slavery was there way before the British slave trade, but it was done, like I said, by Nimrod, and then later on by the Egyptians. Okay, so it was already there. The Israelites, they were there because of Joseph. Remember about Joseph and his father Jacob, or Israel, how he brought his sons and they came to live in Egypt. And then the Pharaoh that was there, that was living at that time, he accepted them. But then later on, as time went on and kings went on, this particular Pharaoh that is mentioned in the book of Exodus, he didn't want to hear nothing about the history of the Israelites. And so therefore, he treated them bad. He wanted to kill them all. But because he couldn't do it, because they were multiplying so much, he forced them into labor, into forced labor, forced slavery. So it's written on their walls, on pyramids over there in Egypt, in Cairo, you know, so it's written on their walls.
Okay, so then
that's deep.
So then, yes. So yeah, for those Americans that are out there that sort of, you know, maybe they haven't educated themselves on slavery enough, to the point to where a lot of Americans feel that slavery began here. When the slaves were, when the blacks were brought here on a ship, there are those Americans out there, and possibly Black Americans, or, you know, people of color, that believe that slavery started in America. But it didn't.
No.
That
was good. That was deep, though.
It's just an extension. I would call it, and Brother Wade, you can chime in on that if you like. I would call it an extension of slavery when it spilled over into America, because it was already in existence, and it was of people of color. So, Miss Amy, are you trying to say something there?
Yeah, but I know that. Okay, so they were in slavery, thinking about just Egypt and the story, and how the Egyptians had them, but they got free. So how did they get back into slavery? Okay,
well, I'm glad that you asked. That's why I quoted the scripture from Deuteronomy 28, because if you read that particular chapter of 68 verses, the first beginning of it, it talks about the blessings, right? Everybody's so excited. Blessed in the field, blessed in the city, blessed coming in, blessed coming out. But the very first verse says, if you hearken unto the voice of the Heavenly Father and to observe and do all his commandments. So maybe the first 15 verses after that, it talks about the blessings. It talks about how your enemy will come one way, how they will leave 7 ways, how you will be kept by the Father. He will fight all your battles. But then the curses, that long list from verse 16 all the way down to 68. And therefore, we are over here in America because we were cursed, because our forefathers had turned their back on the Heavenly Father. Once again, verse 68, it says, and the Father shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Look at the back of your $1 bill. It has a pyramid, okay? So you are in bondage. You are in Egypt. Okay, it's a spiritual Egypt that we are in, not the physical one, not over there in Cairo, but we are in a spiritual Egypt in which whoever is the government, you're supposed to serve them as God. Same thing that they do in Egypt. Whoever was their king and their leader, you had to worship them. Same thing here in the United States. Nothing changed. It just came from the physical aspect when they were held hostage in Egypt. Now you're in a spiritual Egypt. The only way you could be free is the same way they did when they were in Egypt with the Israelites. They believed in the Father and he delivered them. Same thing with us. We have to believe. It's making us and it's forcing us to come back to him. And that's how we'll be free. That's the only way, because there's no running. Not when it comes to the spiritual. I know that's deep. Hallelujah. I can see it. I can see it.
All the viewers, this is good.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Brother Wade. You be trying your best to bust a move when you on the WYLEANER show, and I already know you do. I done see you in action. Miss Amy done see you in action, and we know what what you're trying to do here, and that is get your point across. And you you're in the right place to do exactly that. Okay. But listen, we have got a lot of information to still cover, and we're going to be doing that next week, and we have another guest that's going to be coming on with us next week. So Brother Wade, you will not be by yourself next week. We will have another young lady on with us. And I tell you what, y'all, I don't know what y'all think, but I think the rubber meets the road on the WYLEANER show just about every week. What do you say, Miss Amy?
I'm back next week.
All right. Well, y'all know what I always tell you. I always tell you gotta study for yourself. There's so many different teachings and beliefs out there. You will be confused. You gotta study for yourself. Brother Wade, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you again next week. We appreciate you. And y'all know who I am. I'm WYLEANER, the Las Vegas Queen of Gospel.
And I'm her co-host, and it's Amy Rucker, the voice of my generation.
All righty, y'all know what show this is. This is the WYLEANER show, and this is where the rubber meets the road. We'll see you next week.
WYLEANER.